Years passed after that fateful day, when Lucas McAllister watched his father, John, endure a brutal beating at the hands of the Thompson family. The pain and humiliation were something Lucas could never forget. As he grew older, the image of his father's broken body haunted him, and it fueled a fire inside him that wouldn't burn out. He knew he could never forget the moment he stood helplessly by, watching his father suffer. But Lucas also knew that one day he would return to make things right, to restore his father's honor and take back what was theirs. Lucas left the ranch soon after the Thompson men left that day. His heart was heavy, and his thoughts were filled with nothing but vengeance and justice. He couldn't fight them in that moment, but he promised himself that he would be stronger, that he would return when the time was right. At the age of 16, Lucas set off to find a way to make himself into the man he needed to be. He knew he couldn't face the Thompsons alone as a boy. He would need to become a leader, a warrior. The first part of Lucas's journey took him to nearby towns where he worked in various jobs, anything that could help him survive. He learned the art of hunting, tracking, and surviving in the wild. Over the next few years, Lucas grew stronger and more skilled, but he knew that his path would eventually lead him back to the Apache people. They were known for their strength, their warriors, and their survival skills. If Lucas was ever going to achieve the strength he sought, he would need to learn from the best. One day, while working as a hired hand in a small desert town, Lucas met an old man named Geronimo. The man had once been a chief of the Apache tribe, and though his time of leadership had passed, he was still a fierce warrior. Geronimo saw something in Lucas. He saw the same fire that burned in his own youth. Geronimo took Lucas under his wing, teaching him the ways of the Apache. From him, Lucas learned the value of stealth, strategy, and how to fight not just with strength but with wisdom. Years passed as Lucas trained under Geronimo's watchful eye. The boy who had once been unable to stop his father's tormentors was now becoming a man capable of leading and inspiring others. He learned how to track, how to read the land, and how to fight in a way that used his surroundings to his advantage. Lucas's heart grew heavy with the desire to return to the McAllister ranch, but he knew he was not ready yet. He needed more time, more training, and most importantly, the right allies. Lucas's chance came when a group of Apache warriors, led by a man named Hawk, passed through the area. Hawk had heard of Lucas's growing reputation and the young man's ties to the Apache. Hawk was intrigued by the boy's persistence and strength, and after a few trials he accepted Lucas into his band of warriors. With Hawk's guidance, Lucas became even more skilled in battle. His leadership qualities began to shine through, and soon he was helping to lead raids and defend the Apache lands from settlers and other threats. Lucas's confidence grew, and with it the plan he had been crafting in his mind for years began to take shape. During the time Lucas spent with the Apache, he became a respected warrior. His once painful memories of his father's suffering were now driving him forward with a clear purpose. The thought of returning to face the Thompsons filled him with resolve. He had learned that strength was not just physical. It was in the mind, in the heart, and in the ability to plan ahead. Lucas wasn't going to just charge in and seek revenge. He would be strategic, he would use his new skills, and he would take back what was rightfully his. As the years passed, Lucas's influence among the Apache grew. He became a leader, respected by his peers for his courage and wisdom. But Lucas never forgot his father's words. One day the wrongs done to our family will be avenged. That day was drawing closer. With the Apache warriors by his side, Lucas knew it was time to return to the McAllister ranch. The journey back to his childhood home was long and grueling. Lucas, now a seasoned warrior, rode alongside his Apache brothers, each man determined to carry out the mission they had set before them. They were not just heading back for revenge. They were heading back to restore the honor of a family that had been wronged. Lucas had grown into a man of purpose, a man with a plan, and a man ready to take on the Thompsons and anyone else who would stand in his way. As they neared the ranch, memories of his childhood came flooding back to Lucas. The fields, the barn, the cattle, everything was as he remembered, but now it was more than just a place of memories. It was a symbol of his father's legacy, of all the hard work and sacrifice that had gone into building the ranch. The Thompsons had tried to take it away, but Lucas wasn't going to let them. Not anymore. On the eve of their arrival, Lucas gathered his warriors around a campfire. The Apache warriors sat in silence, waiting for their leader to speak. Lucas looked around at the faces of the men who had become his family, men who had helped him grow and learn. These men, these warriors, were ready to follow him into battle, and Lucas knew that together, they would succeed. "My father's honor was taken from him," Lucas began, his voice low but steady. "We will return what was stolen. This ranch, this land belongs to my family, and it belongs to us now as much as it ever did. Tomorrow we face the Thompsons, but we do so with honor, with strategy, and with the strength of our ancestors at our backs. This is our fight, not just for revenge, but for what is rightfully ours." The warriors nodded, their faces determined. They had followed Lucas to the ends of the earth, and now they would follow him home. The journey had been long, but the battle ahead would be the one that defined them all. As the fire crackled and the night deepened, Lucas couldn't help but feel a sense of calm wash over him. The years of pain, of training, and of waiting had led to this moment. He had become the man his father had always believed he could be. And now it was time to return to the ranch, not as a boy, but as a warrior ready to take back what was his. John McAllister had always prided himself on being a man of strength. His ranch, set in the wide open spaces of the American Southwest, was the fruit of years of hard work. As a boy, he had learned to tend to the cattle and till the soil, and as a man he had turned the land into a thriving business. Now in his older years, John had slowed down, but his spirit remained as strong as ever. He had weathered many storms in his life, physical, emotional, and financial, but nothing could have prepared him for what was about to come. One hot afternoon, John was in the barn mending a fence when he heard the sound of horses approaching. The rhythmic thumping of hooves on the dry earth grew louder, and John looked up, squinting against the sun. A group of men riding on horseback appeared on the horizon, kicking up clouds of dust as they made their way toward the ranch. John recognized them immediately. They were from the Thompson family, a rival ranching family in the area. Garrett Thompson, the eldest of the group, was a man known for his arrogance and violent temper. He had always resented John's success, and over the years there had been whispers of his desire to take over John's land. Garrett and his brothers had tried to intimidate John before, but each time the older rancher had stood his ground. This time, however, there was a different air about them, something far more menacing than usual. John felt a knot tighten in his stomach as the men drew closer. His son Lucas was in the house working on his studies. John had planned to spend the afternoon teaching Lucas how to properly mend the fence, but it seemed the lesson would have to wait. The Thompson men had a different idea. "Afternoon, McAllister," Garrett called out, his voice loud and mocking. "We've come to settle a little score." John stood tall, despite the way his body seemed to ache more these days. "There's nothing to settle," he said, his voice firm. "I'm not selling my land and I'm not leaving. You've come here for trouble and I'm not giving it to you." Garrett smirked. "Oh, I think you'll change your mind once we're done here. Your time is over, old man." The group dismounted and John's heart sank as he realized what was about to happen. He had known these men for years, but he had never seen them act like this. The anger in their eyes was unmistakable, and John knew they weren't just here to talk. They had come to force him off the land. "Garrett, you don't want to do this," John said, trying to reason with him. "You're making a mistake," but Garrett wasn't listening. He stepped forward, shoving John roughly against the barn wall. "You've always been too proud, McAllister. You think you can stand in our way? Well, we're done with you." Before John could react, one of the younger Thompsons, a man named Jake, struck him across the face. John stumbled back, but he didn't fall. His years of experience on the land had made him tough, but the blow was hard and it sent a sharp pain through his jaw. He tasted blood in his mouth. Lucas, who had been inside the house, heard the commotion and rushed to the door. His heart raced as he saw the group of men surrounding his father. The young boy had always looked up to his father as a hero, someone who could face any challenge with bravery and determination. But now, watching the men beat him in front of his eyes, Lucas felt a deep sense of helplessness. His father, the man who had always been his protector, was now vulnerable. John fought back, struggling against Garrett and the others as they pushed him to the ground. Lucas wanted to scream, to run out and help his father, but fear held him in place. He had never seen his father in this much pain before, and he didn't know what to do. "Stay down, old man," Garrett shouted, kicking John in the ribs. "This is the end for you." John gasped for air, feeling his strength fading. He tried to rise, but his body wouldn't cooperate. His age, his years of hard labor had caught up with him, and he was no match for the strength of the younger men. The world seemed to spin around him as Garrett loomed over him, a cruel smile on his face. But despite the pain, John's spirit remained unbroken. He looked up at Lucas, who was standing at the door, his face pale with fear. Don't. Come out here, Lucas, John managed to say, his voice strained. Go inside. Stay safe. Lucas's heart shattered as he watched his father being beaten before him. It was a sight that no boy should ever have to see. But Lucas knew his father's words were not meant for his own safety. John was telling him to go inside because he didn't want Lucas to get hurt. But Lucas couldn't just stand by. He couldn't let these men destroy everything his father had worked for. Gathering every ounce of courage he had, Lucas ran toward the barn, shouting for them to stop. But Garrett turned, his face twisted with anger. You think you can stop us, boy? Garrett sneered. Go back to your little house and stay out of this. But Lucas stood his ground. I won't let you do this. My father has worked his whole life for this land, and you won't take it from him. Garrett looked at Lucas, his eyes cold. You're just a kid. You think you can stop us? You're nothing. John, despite his pain, managed a weak smile. He's not nothing, he said, his voice barely a whisper. He's stronger than you think. As Garrett raised his fist to strike John again, a voice broke through the tension. That's enough, Garrett. Everyone turned to see a man riding in from the distance, a figure dressed in a long, dark coat riding a sturdy horse. His face was shadowed by the brim of his hat, but the voice was unmistakable. It was a voice of authority. The Thompsons hesitated, uncertain. Garrett scowled, but then he recognized the newcomer. It was one of John's old friends, a man named Henry, who had come to check on him after hearing the commotion. Stay out of this, Henry, Garrett warned. But Henry didn't back down. You've gone too far, Garrett. Leave McAllister alone or we'll have a bigger problem on our hands. With the arrival of Henry, the Thompson men backed off. Garrett gave one last angry look at John before mounting his horse and signaling for his men to follow. Consider this your warning, McAllister, Garrett called out as they rode off. We'll be back. John, battered and broken, struggled to sit up. He looked at Lucas, his eyes filled with both sorrow and pride. I'm sorry, son, he whispered, his voice full of pain. I couldn't protect you this time. But Lucas, despite the fear and anger rising in his chest, took his father's hand and whispered back, We'll make them pay for this, Pa. I swear we will.